I do believe that a person can develop their appreciation for art. I think that you like a certain amount of food and you can probably just like a little bit more, right? You like a certain type of music, a certain range of genres. You can probably like a couple more genres. You like a certain number of movies, you can maybe like a new movie, right? There are different things. You can just always widen that scope. Maybe you can only do a little bit at a time, but you can always widen that scope. And then in the other direction, you can always like something that you already like, and you can like it in new ways, or you can like something different about it, or like something. You can untangle the things that you like. When I'm saying untangle, I mean you can like it in more resolution. You can be more detailed in what you like about something. And that applies to a lot of different things. It applies to art generally, it applies to certain types of art, it applies to genres, like I said, it applies to a particular artwork. You can like a particular artwork and then increase the range of certain parts of it, or increase what you consider that particular artwork, like the context around it, or you can appreciate more of the details within that artwork. So this widen range and more detail, it applies to a lot of different aspects of art. Now, and I also don't think there may not even be much of a distinction between the two things I'm describing, wider range and more detail. There may not be much of a distinction between those two things I'm describing. So I had the lovely experience when I was younger to read a book from Schoenberg about musical composition, classical music composition, from Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven. He also went a little bit further into other composers like Brahms and such, but the classical era composers, he went into the specific phrase structure for classical works. And it is interesting to me because he actually is the person who created this. He invented this idea of sentence form and period form. People had been writing in forms like this, but only in the 19, I don't know, 40s or something, whenever Schoenberg was teaching, he created the actual format for how these all these songs were written, and they applied very, very cleanly to all of the works, maybe not all of the works, but many of the works of Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, and so on. Um, and he also talks about sonata form and just the bigger structure. So the phrasing is like small structures, and then bigger structures of song form, scherzo form, sonata form, rondo form, all these types of things. I had this lovely experience of reading about that and then learning and then having and then being able to listen to classical music in a different way. There was a day where I listened to classical music and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool, and I was mostly lost. And then the next day, I listened to classical music and I was like, oh my God, this thing is related to that thing. This is amazing, and I just loved it. And I, to this day, still love classical music. And I've had the same experience with visual art, just like paintings, and I've got a book about learning how to draw landscape paintings, and it completely changed how I view landscape paintings and any painting in general. Um, Learning about dynamic symmetry, for example, it's all fascinating stuff, changing how I view art, and it's fundamentally unlocking new ways of appreciating the world for me. And that's what I like. And I want more of that. And I think it's possible for people to do. I also think it's possible for an individual to do that themselves. Like they can create a new way of appreciating work of art, or they can create a new way of appreciating a particular work of art. And then perhaps that applies to many works of art, right? You can have a narrow problem. You can have a narrow, what do you call this? You can have this sort of narrow focus on a particular work of art, but then whatever you learn or how the way that you appreciate that narrow work of art begins to has a wider has a more universal solution. I don't know what I'm saying here. So you can have this narrow appreciation of a particular work of art and a particular aspect of that work of art, but then that appreciation becomes universal and it applies to all the works of art that you appreciate. Of course, it doesn't have to be universal, but it can just be wider. So you can learn how to appreciate a particular work of art, and then that appreciation of that particular work of art applies to all the works in that genre, right? And then you can have a different form of appreciation that applies to a particular work of art. Then it applies to all of the works of art in that medium. And then you can have an appreciation of a particular work of art, and that applies to all works of art. And then you can have a appreciation of a particular work of art that applies to everything, right? So the appreciation can become something that's a universal thing. And then once something like that happens, it really just unlocks this new area for you to appreciate. Like there's just much more. There's like a wider, it's like a step change. I don't know what to call it. It's like you're on one step, like a steps. You're like on one step, and then you can appreciate everything there. You could there's like unlimited room to appreciate so much on this one step. But then you get to some form of appreciation. There's just it just unlocks this next step. You can just step up the steps now, and then you have this whole other range of unlimited appreciation in his other domain. I don't know what to call it. It's something fascinating there. So I like to appreciate art, and I like how sometimes it allows me to appreciate more art deeper and more different ways, or just unlocks these new domains. Domain expansion. I've never seen Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen. Okay, I'm getting a little bit. I had some matcha this morning. Okay, I had a little bit of matcha this morning. All right, I'll admit it. Okay, I'll admit it. Had a little matcha, had a little tea. All right, I'm feeling a little pretty good. All right, I admit it. Well, you can have these steps, this complete step change of appreciating an art in a completely new way, and it unlocks all these new possibilities for appreciating and creating. So I'm on board with actively attempting to appreciate more art or art more deeply, either way, either expanding the range or expanding the details. So I like to, if somebody's introducing me to some form of art, I will try to appreciate it. If there's some new art, like a new medium, like TikTok or YouTube, like completely new mediums of art forms, I'm gonna jump into it and try to appreciate it. I want to learn about it. If there's something that I already like, an old movie that I like, or something of that nature, I like radio shows for whatever reason. I love listening to radio shows. I'm gonna listen to it. I'm gonna try to listen to it more deeply. I want to listen. I want to pause. I want to write notes. I want to play. I want to listen, pause, write notes, rewind, write more notes. I want to do this type of thing to go super, super detailed, because then it can unlock new ways of appreciating the art. I remember watching this movie. It's called Ikiru. I remember watching this movie. It's called To Live by Kurosawa. And there's this it's about the person who gets some type of, I think it's pancreatic cancer or something like that. And he's distraught. But there is this like anchoring of there's this association of the sound of traffic with him thinking about dying, and it is so fascinating. Like I caught it when I was watching this movie one time. I was pausing, and I noticed it. I noticed it. I wrote it down. I noticed it, and then I noticed it early on because there was some like very dramatic event that happened early on. He's like walking when he got diagnosed, or he didn't actually get diagnosed. Watch the movie; it's a fantastic movie. But he got diagnosed. He's walking very solemnly in complete silence, and he accidentally almost walks into traffic, and someone stops him. And then the movie is like completely silent, but then when he walks into traffic, you hear the traffic suddenly, and then that becomes an anchor point. Like every time he's silent, there's a lot of points in the movie where he's like awkwardly not talking, and then you hear traffic suddenly get really loud, and it's like, anyway, it's a good movie. There's traffic. There are other scenes where traffic becomes relevant. I don't know why I'm thinking about Ikiru or talking about it at the moment. It's just a movie I like, and traffic becomes an interesting aspect of it. It makes me think about traffic. The movie, I guess traffic makes me think about. I don't know what I'm. I'm just thinking about it.